Good.
Your meeting is being live streamed.
Got it.
Good afternoon. Well, let's say good evening, YouTube family. If you're on the East Coast, Caleb Kidd Coy here with the lovely Jennifer Cermak. You are live for In the Trenches, episode number 3. Ooh. What do you think so far, Jen, about the
I like it.
2 episodes?
I guess it's backwards here. I didn't have to dress up today. I wasn't meeting with any clients, so I wore my 1776 shirt.
I'm digging the 1776. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
yeah, no,
2
I
shows
like
down,
it.
third one on. What's your gauge so far? We've really covered a lot of content in the first couple episodes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I like it. I like getting finally being able to voice my opinion about things that I know intimate details about. So it's good. Although, even though my practice is mostly estate planning now, which we'll eventually get to, but it's just our world is so crazy right now that I'm enjoying at least having some kind of platform to voice my opinion here.
Yep. It's great to have this additional outlet. And we were just talking about this. You mentioned this 75 bips yesterday, right? They upped the interest rates. Where do you think we're headed in the next few months, Jennifer, on the housing market and the mortgage rates, in addition to the inflationary explosion we're witnessing right now?
Nowhere good. I mean, the things that I'm reading with Forbes and Business Insider there, and finally somebody at Bloomberg had enough cojones to tell the truth, that this is going to be a housing market crash, and it is probably going to be worse than 2008. And that's just all there is to it. And new construction has completely stalled. Yep. And it's kind of funny because the one Bloomberg article that I was reading was talking about how millennials like me are, and also Gen Z, so that would be like my brother and sister's generation, the one below me, we want the housing market to crash because the prices are so ridiculous, we can't afford them right now, right? And so that's bad news for the entire economy, but I guess the silver lining would be is that we'd be able to finally afford a house. So I don't know. It's nowhere good. I know that, shutting down the country for 2 years, it has dire consequences, and we are just now starting to see the beginning of those consequences. This is going to go on for probably another 5 years.
100%. I was telling Jennifer, guys, yesterday evening, I was on a call with a friend who's a 4-decade, 40+ year real estate veteran expert. And I have to tell you more about this, Jen, but actually works with an investment and trust company out of Texas. They're based out of Houston internationally. And it's really cool because what they are able to do is to provide home loans to buyers who would not typically qualify for standard FHA loans and things like that. And basically, you don't even have to have good credit. With this type of scenario, your cash essentially is your credit. So as long as you've got the 20% down for your cash, for the payment, obviously there's a few other stipulations, right? They need to make sure you're not somebody who's just going to stop making payments in 2 months, right? But obviously, if you've got the reserves, but you don't got the credit, there's a good chance that you're qualifying. I remember thinking to myself, God, I needed you guys back when I was in full-time ministry and I couldn't qualify for jack squat. But really the way things are headed, because I'm telling my real estate friends, my realtors about it as well, because it's actually a wonderful tool to have in their belt. So just to let you guys know that there's things like that out there. But we were having this conversation and he said, what's happening right now, Caleb, is mirroring the Jimmy Carter era, except for the fact, you and I were talking about this, Jennifer, that they aren't accurately portraying what the real inflationary rates are. So we're looking at 9-ish%, but when you use the tools, the more accurate tools that were used back in Carter era, you're really looking at about an 18% inflation.
Insanity.
It's insane.
Well, it is insane. And the thing that's so ridiculous too, it's like, oh, so we don't like the math with the old, way that we've been doing the math for 100 years, 200 years, whatever it was. So we're just going to change the math. And it's like, you can't do that. But yeah, in 18, that's the reports that I'm seeing anywhere. I've seen some higher estimates of 20%. I don't know if it's that much, but 18 is about where everybody's saying. That is insanity. All
It's
right.
crazy.
Something that cost you $1 last year is $1.18 now. That's just psycho, because everybody's feeling it, and
Yeah.
all these people up on the hill that are saying, oh, that clown meme where it's like first he's putting on the face, then he's putting on the head, then he's putting on the wig, and each step he becomes more and more of a clown. Have you ever seen that?
Oh yeah.
Well,
Okay. Yeah, I remember that one.
yeah, so I saw one that was like, there is no inflation. Inflation is good, actually. You should be thankful for inflation. Oh, and by the way, we're not in a recession. It's like, they're just absolute clowns. And it's
Yep.
on the hill, they're basically telling you, who you gonna believe, me or your lying eyes?
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna believe my lying eyes, because they ain't lying to me. And I just went to the grocery store, and just commodities, it's like, what used to cost $200-300 is like $400-500 now, and that hurts.
Yeah.
So these people are completely devoid of reality. And I mean, you can't shut down an economy for 2 years and also print the most money that's ever been printed ever.
Exactly.
Those two things do not work.
No, they don't.
And so here we are, and it's just a sad state of affairs. I mean, it's going to be, and it's not just the United States, it's a global recession. Okay.
Yep.
China, actually, I was reading a report, China's on the brink of currency collapse, because
Yep.
they've been doing the whole, their real estate companies are building these huge high rises that they don't actually have a need for. Then the high rises are empty. Then there's a fire, destroy the high rises, go to somewhere else, and then build it up again. Well, eventually, when you commit fraud like that, it catches up to you. And so they're about to collapse too. Russia's about to collapse. We're about to collapse. It's like, it's a global thing right now. All of these global elites that all with Klaus Schwab and the World Economic Forum and George Soros, when they got together and said, this opportunity for us to rearrange the world, welcome to the consequences of those decisions.
Better believe it. IMF, International Monetary Fund. And he and I had this convo again last night that is just so elementary school for people that understand this, but there's still a lot of people that do not understand that the Federal Reserve has nothing to do with the federal government. It is a privately owned international banking cartel, prints money, does what they want. This inflationary, bubble that is beginning to burst now has been going on for a long, long time. Really, since its inception in 1913 on Jekyll Island, Georgia. I mean,
I'm so glad that you said that. Yeah, I mean, have
the
Fed,
ahead.
Which, the Fed. Okay, look, I'm a libertarian, and that's one of the things that is a libertarian platform is end the Fed. Okay, Ron Paul has been screaming about this. They are a third-party, quasi-governmental, but quasi-banking institution. They don't actually answer to our government. However, they drive the currency of our government.
Right.
Okay, and so
if Ron Paul could have been president, how cool would have that been? Sorry to say,
dude. I mean, I met him. I need to find my picture with him because I met him a few years ago, and it was like I was like starstruck. I've met celebrities before. Like my mom's side of the family all lives in Los Angeles, and my aunt used to be an extra and work in Hollywood and all that stuff. So I've met like Drew Carey and certain celebrities and stuff. But I was absolutely starstruck when I met Ron Paul. Okay, I mean, amazing. Like I'm not worthy, but he's been screaming about this his entire career.
Yep.
Andrew Jackson, when they were going to make the Fed, he said, "You are a den of vipers, and I will." What's the quote? "I will snuff you and snipe you out," or something like that. It's a whole quote. Because he saw what these bankers were doing, and the irony is that he got put on the $20 bill. And so here's these bankers who are actually, if you want to talk about like the deep state, that's who the deep state really started with, was the banking and the currency. And they are driving policies And in 1913, when you're talking about the actual Fed creation, that was because the federal income tax was levied in 1913. Woodrow Wilson, one of the worst presidents that have ever gone down in history, 1913 instituted the federal income tax, which also gave the Fed complete control over our currency. And then the second time that when it wasn't that bad when the Fed actually had a gold standard.
Exactly.
Right.
Yep.
It wasn't that bad. But then what was it? 1971. We got away from the gold standard.
Yep.
And you look at the charts of inflation, and it's like, and then you hit 1971, and it goes whoop,
exactly,
and it just keeps going and going.
Because
and going.
that is when the dollar officially became fiat, because it was
Fiat
backed
money.
by nothing but
exactly.
the
Well, you
Americans
can
believed that.
you could argue in the 70s, 80s, and 90s that it was backed by oil. Okay, that that's not on paper,
Right.
but that's what you could argue, that we did have it backed by oil because we were such an oil producing type of country. But at this point, there is nothing backing it. It's fiat money. It's monopoly money. It's just
money.
paper that they just print and print and print. And it's just it's crashing. It's absolutely crashing, which is then making all the rest of this stuff go up. Like, that people don't understand the relation and correlation to these things. And it's all directly resulting from the Fed, the World Economic Forum, the World Monetary Fund, IMF, all of those things. So what we're seeing now is the consequences of these global elites playing with our currency. That's how George Soros made his fortune, right?
Of course.
Yeah, that he was. So first of all, he's on camera saying this. So these are not conspiracy theories. What I'm about to say, I'm actually half Jewish on my mom's and my grandmother's side. So that means that I could go into a synagogue and they would consider me a full Jew because it's on my mother's side. And I was talking to another Jew just a couple of days ago, and we were talking about George Soros, and I absolutely hate him. I think he's one of the most evil people in the world ever. And this guy I was talking to was like, well, you're just like naming conspiracy theories. And so I pulled up the 60-minute interview and had him watched it. And he's like, what? And I'm like, you're watching it from the horse's mouth right here. Okay, so this isn't a conspiracy theory. He's admitting to it back in the 90s that this is what he did. And so what George Soros did was during I think it was the Nazi occupation of Austria, he denied his religion. Okay, so when the Nazis were rounding up Jews, he denied that he's a Jew. He actually helped participate in the, I would call it the raping of the Jew community, where they're rounding up the Jews to put them on trains. They're stealing all of their silver and china and everything. He participated in that. Okay. He told on people who were housing Jews. Okay. So he's 14 years old running around being a little Nazi. Okay. And that I understand the sense of survival. Okay, because that's a survival instinct. I get that. All right. If I'm smart enough to see that Jews are getting round up, I'm probably going to deny my religion too. And I might participate in some things, but it was kind of egregious, actually. Yeah. So he survived that way. But then when he got older, into his 20s, he started getting into banking, and not just banking, but currency exchange. Which, if you understand what currency exchange is, it's, let's just say from like the dollar to the pound in the UK. Okay. The pound is worth more than the dollar. Like for £1, it's like $1.40. So there's this exchange that has to happen there between countries if they're going to lend to each other, if they're going to trade goods and stuff like that. So he got into that business. And basically what that is legalized money laundering. Okay. And so that's how he made his fortune, was in currency exchange and money laundering. And so he did it right after World War II, which means, anything about the stock market, millionaires and billionaires are made actually when the stock market is down.
That's right.
Okay. So like right now would be a great time to invest.
Right.
Okay, because the stock market is so down right now and just absolutely tanking that if you buy everything right now, when it inevitably goes back up, maybe it might be 10 years from now, but when it goes back up, you're the only one that got a stock for, let's say, $2.
Yep.
And then it goes up to 100. Well, now you just made millions. Okay. And so that's basically what he did. So he turned on his brethren to save his own skin. Then he got into the currency exchange, which is money laundering, but legal, and then became a billionaire by investing in stocks during the Depression and times like that, or a depressive state, let's say. And so, then he became mega millions. And then there are times with people like him where he could say one little word and the markets will go crazy. And like he had said something about Southeast Asia country was not stable. And when he said that, their market completely tanked.
Yes.
So this guy has a lot of power and he wields it around. He's like a bull in a china closet, and he's just destroying nations. And he's doing it on purpose because he wants to usher in his vision for the globe. And then, of course, Klaus Schwab is on board, and they have their own academy where they're training, like Justin Trudeau out of Canada is a graduate of their academy. All the prime minister, the lady from New Zealand, she's also a graduate. So they're infecting all of these governments with this, for lack of a better word, new world order, right? And when they're instituting what's been going on, and you see these articles where they say there's going to be a little bit of pain. Yeah, it's going to hurt. Yeah, it's going to hurt. Understand when they're saying that, what they're actually talking about is poor people dying. Okay, because that's what's going to happen. The rich people are going to be able to absorb the inflation. The poor people are not, and they are going to die by the hundreds of thousands, if not millions. That's what they're actually talking about when they say, oh, it's going to be a little bit pain. Transition's going to hurt a little bit. What they're actually talking about is poor people dying.
That's right. Anybody hear about the Georgia Guidestones being blown up? Anybody know what was written on the Georgia Guidestones? Had a little bit to do with the depopulation agenda.
Yep.
By about 2/3.
Right. That's exactly what they want. They want to cut the population. What is it? 5 million?
Yeah. It's an insane number.
Or they want the population to be steadified at 5 million or something like that. Like, that's ridiculous. That means billions of people you wish dead.
Sure.
And I don't get it either.
People like Gates, Bill Gates talks openly about it and things like that. It's just like, they're
telling you, like, when people, that guy was like, though you're talking about conspiracy theories, I'm like, it's not a conspiracy theory when he's on camera saying it, when it's on their website, when they are openly honest about what their objectives and goals are. This is not a conspiracy theorist. You're just ostrich with your head in the sand on purpose.
Exactly.
You are on purpose not opening your eyes. That's what's happening.
And it's
so
more
if
in
you
your
are
face
on
than
purpose,
ever before, Jennifer.
Well, I mean,
it's always
they
been
saw a
hidden in
unique
plain
opportunity,
sight, right? If you have eyes to see, but now they're just blatantly putting it out there.
Of course they are. Of course they are.
Spoon-feeding.
Like the Committee of the 300, which works along hand with the World Economic Forum and the International Monetary Fund. But the Committee of the 300, I mean, this is not a conspiracy. I know that for a couple thousand years, people have called it a conspiracy, but it's not a conspiracy if they're actually meeting and doing these, like, just because they're meeting behind closed doors and does not mean that what we're talking about is a conspiracy.
Right.
If anything, they're the conspiracy because they're meeting behind closed doors, right? And planning all of these global things. But now it's all in the open. They saw the coronavirus pandemic as a way to accelerate their plans. And, they hate America because we are born and bred with the don't tread on me type of attitude. And they got almost every single country to follow along with them except for two. And that was the United States of America, which, we almost had open civil war during that time, right? The fight about it. But then the second one was India. India said no. I don't know if you heard about that, like, especially with the vaccines.
Mm-hmm.
You know how the vaccines, the vaccines, in my point of view, or from what I can see, it was a litmus test, okay, of who's going to be a good little drone versus
100%.
who's going to be, fight about it. And in India, one of the things with the vaccines, by the way, when did liberals become shills for big pharma?
Good
When did that
question.
happen? Why did we go from big pharma is bad, corporations making billions of dollars off people suffering is bad, to get the shot or you don't get to come to Christmas? Like,
Right. Yep.
when,
Or keep your job.
or keep your job, or do anything, like be a part of our friend group, or,
Right.
things like, it's, how did that happen? It's brainwashing. They're very good at it. Okay.
100%.
But one of the things with the big pharma is, everybody knows this, that if they were going to sell our governments this vaccine, experimental vaccine, that they had indemnity clauses in those contracts that says that we can't be sued
Of course.
for any problems that come from this experimental vaccine.
Yeah. If you drop over
Because
dead, you can't sue us.
right, and the governments can't sue us either.
Yep.
And this is, by the way, it's not a vaccine, which they are on record. This is on paper saying this is not a vaccine. This is gene therapy, but we've renamed it to a vaccine to be more palatable for the public. That is on record. That's not a conspiracy theory. They're in
100%.
black and white writing.
Yep.
And this gene therapy, not a vaccine, gene therapy, call it what it is, never made it out of animal trials, right? Because the animals kept dying. Okay. That's also on record. That's not a conspiracy theory. That is factual. And so India, when Pfizer and Moderna and Johnson & Johnson approached India said, sure, you can sell us the vaccines, but we're taking out the indemnity clause. If you cause great harm to our citizens, we will be able to sue you. And yes, and so India did not get the mass vaccination that the rest of the world did because of that. And they have not seen the deaths that we have now. Second most populated country in the world, and their mortality rate was normal during COVID and is normal now. I don't know. That sounds like some funny numbers there.
It's a little bit, math doesn't add up again. Maybe that's them manipulating the numbers. I don't think a lot of the public realizes, Jennifer, that DNA, I was going to say DNA, but DNA and genetic manipulation on humans has been taking place for a long time. Let's call it like it is. Human experimentation has been going on for a very long time.
Well, and I never was like a big fan of Alex Jones. Okay, like he's kooky crazy.
Oh boy,
when you first watch him,
don't use AJ.
Well, a lot of the things that he has said has come true.
Of course.
That's the thing. So one of the things, this was maybe like 5 or 6 years ago, I was watching one of his rants, and at the time you're just laughing, oh, this guy's crazy. And he was talking about Chinese scientists taking human genomes and manipulating them to match with pigs. And then 5 or 6 years later, that story breaks.
Yep.
And that's exactly what they have done.
Yep.
And it's like this crazy kooky guy is actually telling the truth. Like, what is happening here? It's man, we're in a weird state in the world right now, and there's half the population, especially in the United States, half the population is willfully blind. They don't want to hear anything against the narrative. They don't want to hear it. They don't want to see it. You could put it right in their face and they still won't believe it.
Yep.
And I think the other half is finally waking up and being like, no. So I would say that the two countries in the world that are fighting against these World Economic Forum, the IMF, WTO, all those 3-letter agencies that are global, the Fed, all of this stuff, it's going to be the United States and India. I bet that's where it all comes down to, is us. We have a great economy here, so I think that we'll suffer a little bit through this inflation. 5 years is what I would predict. 5 years of terrible inflation.
I would say minimum that. Yep.
Mm-hmm. But as a nation, we are wealthy enough that like our poor people are still considered wealthy in other countries, right?
Yep.
So I think that we'd be able to suffer through it. But on a global scale, if you take and sit back and look at this globally, what they're doing right now is going to kill millions of people, billions, possibly millions and billions of people. In third world countries, oh, you're just going to have to suffer a little bit. I know gas prices are high right now. I know food's a little high right now. No, what you're actually saying is you're okay with people dying, millions, and even more than the coronavirus, right? Famine is going, food, energy. Watch for a huge die-off.
100%. Well, and you can always look at and follow the wealthy and the people that have money and the patterns and the trail that they leave behind. I could list names of people over the past year and witness what they did, what they sold off, what they transitioned, right? Took money out, converted it to gold and silver. I mean, people that are in the know, right? They knew what was coming, at least to some degree, and they prepare in advance. And I think this is a great caveat into talking a little bit about what we do, Jennifer, with estate planning, because when we enter into times like our world is seeing, our nation is seeing, our economy is seeing, there is so much fear integrated into that. Oftentimes it keeps us in a place of paralyzation, and we don't take action and do the things that we know we need to do. And so we can look at the wealthy or people who take these preliminary precautions, if you will, or really they are is just actionable advanced steps to position themselves not only to protect against losses, but to position themselves potentially for gains. And you touched on this earlier, Jennifer. Anytime there is a recession or there is, economic unrest, if you will, there is always opportunity embedded within that. If we understand how things work, if we position ourselves to be in a place like that and, be able to do that. So I think it's a great time to talk about, how important is it right now for us, Jennifer, to have our ducks in a row, to have our house and our estate in order to protect against what's coming down the pike?
Extremely important. Now, everything I'm about to say is on the presumption that a government would honor private contracts. Okay. So that is the risk that Caleb and I do. Is what we do is we make private estates. Okay. And what is a private estate? So you would probably better know that as a trust is what most people call that. So here's the thing. When somebody passes away, and let's say they have titled property, which is going to be like a house or a car, or signature property, that is like a bank account, a 401k, a retirement account. When they pass away, if you were alive and you owned a car and you wanted to give that car away or sell that car, you would just sign for it, right? But when you pass away, you're no longer there to sign for that transfer, okay? And so there has to be, when somebody passes away, there has to be this administrative process that takes the deceased person's name off of that titled or signature property and transfers it to a living person. Because there's a principle that dead people cannot own property.
Right.
Okay. And so there has to be this administrative process that gets that deceased name off the title and transfers it to a living person. The vast majority of people do not make private estates to actualize that administrative process. Okay. The vast majority of people end up going through the government process, which is better known as probate court. Right. So that administrative process, there are two avenues it can take place in: the public avenue or the private avenue. Right. When I say public, I mean government. And that is the judicial system here in America. We call it probate court. That is the administrative process of getting a deceased person's name off of the item, the car, the house, the bank account, whatever, and transferring it to a living individual. It does not have to be that way, though. And that's why people make private estates. You better know that as a trust. A trust does the same exact administrative function, except it's done in the private realm rather than the public realm. So you don't have the court system you have to deal with, and you don't have all the hoops and the red tape and stuff that you have to deal with when you go through a government entity. And so that's what Caleb and I do, is we help people. First of all, we educate them on that process, why it's so vital. And then in the hopes of educating you that you will make a very good informed decision and take the time to make a private estate. I don't care what kind of property it is, if it's a house, a car, a bank account, whatever. If you don't put it in a trust, it will go through probate, period. This is public information. Everything that I'm saying here, you can look up online. You can Google your state's probate code. Say Missouri probate code or Colorado probate code. It's going to show you how the government says this is how we're going to do it. Of course, along with the government's process or probate process is going to be outrageous fees, delays, injunctions. Every state has a probate code.
Contestations from other people that might want a piece of the pie.
Right. That's an open forum. The court system is, right? So anybody could come and challenge an estate or anything, because that's a constitutional thing. It's an open forum. And so by switching your estate, getting it out of that public lane and switching it into the private lane, you're divorcing yourself from the government, first of all. Now, once you do make a private estate, there is a lot of really cool things you can do with it. Okay. But the first and foremost is we've got to get your into this private estate so that your family doesn't go through probate when you pass away. But then now that we've created that, once you're alive, then there's a lot of really cool things we can do with a private estate, to mitigate taxes, to divorce the IRS, and I'm telling you, I have seen clients whose potential tax bill in retirement was over $500,000. And by making a private estate and just planning, just making a few little tweaks here and there to their estate, they end up completely divorcing the IRS within 5 years, and they never have to pay taxes ever again. Okay, so this is, and everything that I'm telling you right now is public information. This is what Nancy Pelosi is doing. This is what Mitch McConnell is doing. Boone Pickens, Bill Gates, all of this stuff. One of the funny things with Bill Gates, have you ever heard him say that when he dies, he's going to give his entire estate to charity?
Something along
you ever heard him
lines,
say?
Right?
I'm like, okay, because I do advanced high level planning, and yes, he is correct that when he passes away, his estate will go to charity. However, he is using specific kinds of trusts called CRATs, ILETs, and wealth preservation trusts. Yep. He is using those legal structures to actually expand his estate. So yes, on paper, it looks like a charity is going to get his entire estate, but in so doing, he's actually giving his wife, well, I guess not his wife anymore, but his kids for sure, all of this money. He's making his estate bigger. But here's the kicker. The charity he's donating to is his own charity.
Of course.
So he's getting a tax write-off on making a charitable donation. He's actually expanding his own estate presently, and also the amount his family is going to get. And when he's donating to charity, he's donating to his own foundation.
Yep. So
these are legal ways of doing this. He's not cheating the system. Right. He's just using the system. Mm-hmm. And the thing about it for, obviously I'm not Bill Gates, neither is Caleb, neither are most people, right? These are the same laws though.
Correct.
So why isn't middle America taking advantage of this? Mm-hmm. It's the same laws. You got a house, you got cars, you got a bank account, you got some retirement funds. You can do the same exact thing. So why aren't you? And if you aren't, did you even know about this stuff? And right. If you didn't know, do you have an advisor?
Hmm.
And if you do have an advisor, why isn't your advisor telling you these things?
This is a paradigm that Jennifer and I are really working hard to shatter, you guys. There's a misconception around estate planning only being for the wealthy or for people that have a lot of money, and that is just not accurate. And in many
No.
ways, as Jennifer just articulated, and she was a former probate attorney, guys, by the way, so she knows
Yeah.
it actually benefits middle-class families more. Why is it that oftentimes middle-class families suffer greater probate fees, Jennifer? Just to bring some clarity.
Well, um, well, the obvious one is going to be fighting. Okay. Where heirs are fighting about money. Yes.
Yep.
But actually it's not so much. Yeah, of course they fight about money, but it's like sentimental things that they'll fight about. Now here's the thing with probate. Every jurisdiction has a probate code, and every code has a fee schedule in it. Now, half the country, about half the jurisdictions actually have a set fee schedule where it'll say something like from $0 to $100,000, the attorney gets 3%, and the probate court gets another 3%. And then from 100,000 to 200,000, the attorney gets 2.5%. And so there's a sliding scale. But even if you're in the sliding scale fee schedule jurisdictions, there is always a footnote that says these are minimums. Okay. So that's the minimum you're going to pay if your estate goes through probate court. And then the other half of the jurisdictions have they don't have a set fee schedule, but what they will say is the attorney gets reasonable fees. Okay. Do you have any idea what the definition of reasonable means?
Well, no offense to you personally, Jennifer, but most attorneys' fees aren't exactly what I think the public would consider reasonable.
Oh, I guarantee you and our definitions of reasonable are completely different. I think $400 an hour is reasonable.
Right.
Okay. But most people listening are like, oh, right. And so there is a financial, understand this, and I'm going to make a lot of attorneys really upset with me saying this.
Come on.
There is a financial incentive. If you die and your estate is going through probate and I'm the attorney probating your case, I have a financial incentive to keep your estate in probate. That's the only way I'm going to make more money, is if your kids are fighting, or if we're going to kick this can down the road for another 6 more months. There is literally a financial incentive for me to keep your estate in probate. So that hits middle America extremely hard. And, that's why attorneys get a bad rap. Yep. Hello. I don't do probates anymore. I haven't done a probate case in probably 6 or 7 years. I'm so done with it. It's so toxic. Even for me, watching families just completely destroy themselves in court and profiting off of that destruction. That makes me feel gross inside. And so I couldn't sleep. Staying up till 2, 3 in the morning, thinking about tomorrow and tossing and turning and all this stuff. I actually got to the point where my boyfriend was like, you have got to change profession or subjects because you are psycho. And it was because, I had 20 cases basically, and you're thinking they're all on fire all the time. And there's, this thing, and then the inner core realization, I'm profiting off these people's misery.
Wow, thank you for that transparency, Jennifer. And again, ladies, gentlemen, parents, if you're hearing this again, because Jennifer and I can tell you, we hear this all the time. Well, my kids get along great, and I'll just make them. I don't need a corporate successor trustee. I'll just make them. And we're going, They get along until right. You're gone, and all of a sudden, no, I want Dad's vintage Mustang, and no, he told me he was gonna. Guys, this is the best way to prevent that from happening as a parent who is legacy minded. And if you are not legacy minded, you need to start thinking about what kind of legacy you're going to leave behind, because we all will leave one day. And until somebody out there discovers a fountain of youth, we're all going to die, and we're going to leave a legacy behind. What do you want that to look like? how do you want to be remembered by your family and your loved ones and your children? This is the kind of stuff you got to be thinking about. And you can write this down, have this in black and white legally, so that your wishes, your desires cannot be contested. And even if your kids want to fight over it, there's nothing that they can do. It will be followed to a T, smoothly, seamlessly, painlessly, and it won't cost you 30 to 40% potentially of your estate that could be drawn down by the probate
There's
process.
been estates, I have seen estates go through probate where the estate was completely blood dry and
See
the
that,
kids
guys?
got nothing.
Completely.
And here's another misnomer that I want to teach people, because
Please.
I hear this all the time. It is such misinformation. It makes me want to pull my hair out. Oh, I've got a will. I'm fine. Actually,
a will
completely
not
couldn't be
enough,
further from the
Jennifer?
truth. Okay,
Tell
so
us why.
a last will, a will actually guarantees probate. All right, let me tell you why. Because a last will and testament is actually your last testimony of what you are willing to happen or intending to happen. Okay, so here's the thing. If we were doing this while you were alive, we'd just put you on the stand. Who gets the Mustang? And then you just tell us, right? Well, if you make a last will and testament, I can't exactly put you on the witness stand, right? So after you pass away, that's what we use as your testimony of what you are willing to happen or intending, for who to get what. But it's just testimony. We don't have to listen to you. Okay. Do you like watch court TV or any? Here's a good example. Did you watch the Johnny Depp Amber Heard trial?
Oh, I caught bits and pieces, of course. Yep.
I was obsessed. It was the most fascinating case study I think I've seen in years. Okay. Yep. I was absolutely obsessed. I was really involved with the law tube community, and all of us were just absolutely obsessed with the circus that was going on. Okay. It was crazy. Yep. But when Amber Heard was up there testifying, did you believe a single word she said?
Not exactly.
I didn't. Okay. She was not credible. Testimony is just testimony. We don't have to believe you. We don't have to listen to you. A judge certainly doesn't have to believe you. So if you're taking this last will and testament and basically putting yourself on the witness stand, post-death, basically, same kind of thing. We don't have to listen to you. A judge doesn't have to listen to you. It's just testimony. So it is not solid. And even if you said something solid in there, like my son gets the Mustang, that can be contested because maybe your daughter says, well, on her deathbed, she said I could have the Mustang.
Changed your mind. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So now we're in this thing. So a will is a guarantee your estate will go through probate. It doesn't protect anything. It's just you voicing post-death what you want to have happen. The only way to avoid probate is to make a private estate. That's what you know as a trust. That is the only way to do it, guys. Now, there are some things in the middle of estate planning, like transfer on death deeds, payable on death deeds, beneficiary deeds, joint tenancy. I don't particularly like those. I have entire podcasts and radio shows on why those are very, very risky and not the best way to do estate planning. They're in the middle. Some of them are worse than others. But if you want to make sure that your estate goes to who you want it to go to, when you want it to get to them, why, all the who, what, when, where, why. If you want to make darn sure that that's going to happen, you need to make a private estate. Yes. Okay. Period, exclamation point. This is public information. You can Google this right now. Yep. Okay. Every single jurisdiction in the country has a probate code, and every single probate code says we have jurisdiction over your title and signature assets unless those assets are in a trust. Every single one of them. I don't care if you're in California or Florida, New York, Colorado, Missouri, Texas. All of them say that. And that's because the trust is the private avenue for estate settlement, not the public one.
Love that.
So, yeah, and very passionate about it.
Yes, very. And I love it, Jennifer. And why do we specialize in revocable living trust, guys? because they can be changed. They can be updated. You are in control, sitting at the driver's seat. And any changes you want to make, you change your mind about who gets the Mustang. A few clicks of the button, verified e-sign technology, and that update has been made. So what can we do, Caleb and Jennifer, to take the next steps? You can go right here to calebkidcoy.com, and on that homepage, you register for the Heroes Legacy process. Full-length presentation on wills, trusts, and probate. You'll hear some things that Jennifer and I already talked about, but you'll get more detail. And then we can hop on a call. You can schedule on our calendar and we can get you started. We can talk about these things and hopefully get done what needed to get done a while ago, so that regardless of what tomorrow holds or what the future holds, you're going to be protected. You're going to have that peace of mind. And I don't know about you, Jennifer, but peace of mind in this day and age is pretty invaluable, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's essential at this point. I don't know, when I'm 75, 80 years old, I don't want to be messing around and thinking about this stuff. I want to have it all set up. I know exactly what's happening and it just happens. And I know it's going to just happen when I pass away. I don't want to have to worry about all this family fracturing and toxicity that's going to go on. When I'm retired, I want to enjoy my retirement. And part of that is knowing my legacy is going to pass smoothly to my family.
Absolutely. Love it, Jennifer. Well, guys, we appreciate you joining us today. Obviously, there was more we would have loved to cover, but that's going to have to wait for a next episode here. And in addition to estate planning tools, you'll also find other workshops on the website where we teach you tools that you can use to get ahead of the inflationary curve. Once you've got your estate set up and protected, you don't just want to leave it like that. You want to grow it. And in this time that we're living in, because we started the program talking about inflation, you've got to know what you can do and where you can put your money so that it can grow safely in order for you to stay ahead of the curve, so that not only can you enjoy a nice retirement, but that you will still have money to pass on to your kids and grandkids. There's an old proverbial statement that goes, a good man or woman leaves an inheritance to their children's children. That's a legacy mindset, guys. Jennifer, I appreciate you so much. Until next time, guys, we've got a big family transition coming up, so we're going to be out of pocket next week, but I assure you we'll be back on par the week that follows to share more information and talk about more fun stuff, Jennifer. So thanks for joining me today.
Yeah, Caleb, good luck. You're you're much braver than I am, and I hope, I wish and pray for nothing but smooth sailing for